Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to the Stratosphere Lounge. I'm your host, Bill Whittle. He comes on now. So, yet another flawless launch. We have the astonishingly convenient, but somewhat less astonishingly reliable USB connections. Anyway, here we are. So, we're doing the Friday night show because I was a little busy yesterday. My wife is still recovering from dengue fever. Got her some fluids and stuff today and some steroids. She had a autoimmune reaction that was causing her palms to itch so badly that it was like, she said it's like they were in boiling water. So that was not so much fun. So I'm going to try and keep this one relatively brief tonight. But in any event, yeah, rough week. Yeah, to say the least. Anyway, that is that. She was feeling a good deal better yesterday. So yesterday I did something that I hadn't done in a long, long time. And I mean like 6 years, something like that. I actually went for a flight. I went for first time since early January 2017 since I've been let loose over the skies of Los Angeles with the controls of an aircraft. And it was something I'd been wanting to do for the last 6-7 months, and I convinced myself if I could ever get this Empire of Terror thing finished, then that would probably be something I would do. So I did it. Now, I got started in gliders in 1991. Thank you. Hair looks great. Thank you. That's all that really matters, actually. I don't care so much about the technical stuff, and certainly not the content. Just as long as the hair looks good, I'm fine. And I got into gliders because it was all I could afford. But prior to that, around 89, when I was working as a limo driver, I would I'd save my pennies, and I would go for a helicopter lessons. The first flight lessons I ever got were in helicopters. And when you get to fly once every 4 or 5 weeks, you spend most of your hour lesson trying to remember what you did previous lesson. But I did about, 13, 14 hours in helicopters in Hughes 300s, training helicopter, a little time in an R-22. And I really loved it. I loved it. And so I had said, it's just something I really enjoyed. And I've flown everywhere there is to fly in fixed-wing aircraft from Los Angeles. So, I've gone everywhere there is to go. Might as well try a different kind of thing. So I found, just over the course of the years, really cool-looking little helicopter called Cambry G2. It's a French helicopter. And it's slick-looking. And they have one in Los Angeles. So I finally decided, all right, I'm going to go. So I went down and did that yesterday. Now, I will show you where did it go? I think this is it. I will show you my little walk out to the helicopter, which is extremely brief, but this is it. In my opinion. Where are the wings, you're probably asking? Love it. That is a Cambry G2. One more time. It's a fine looking machine in my opinion. There we go. So cool. I thought fantastic. My site's just getting worse and worse. Marky Mind, sorry if I got that wrong. You could say Bill is here today, Gorn tomorrow. Very good. Well played. So it's like, I showed this to Natasha after it was over. She doesn't like me flying much, and she was just perfectly cool about it, but I could tell she was a little worried. So I showed her the picture, the video of the helicopter, and she said, oh, okay, that looks pretty good, And then I showed her a picture that the instructor took with me in front of the helicopter, and she was somewhat more freaked out about it. Here's the same helicopter, but this time with a human added for scale. So you can see my heels are up against the skid of that. It's not like that's not false perspective or anything. It's just a tiny little thing. And it's super slick looking. And I was thinking, if I ever move to Texas or Tennessee or something, someplace where there's actual, outdoors, that'd be kind of a fun way to just kind of get around and stuff. So I went down to Long Beach, took a flight, and I didn't feel it at all. I'm 6'1". I got nothing out of it. I was so looking forward to it, and we started this thing up and engaged the rotors, and things starts doing that shaky thing. None of this worried me or particularly scared me. I'll just explain basically why. So little ragged, then you get the thing up to flight RPM, and then it smooths out quite a lot. So we hovered. My instructor was probably 24, 25-year-old woman who'd already gotten her CFI in helicopter, CFI in instrument helicopter instructor. So she knew what she was doing. But she'd never been interested in flying. She just, on a whim, decided to go down there and check it out, and decided she wanted to do it. So 3 years later, she's teaching bozos like me how to work that amazing machine, which is not easy to control. So we did the Long Beach Harbor tour, and that area, especially off the coast of Palos Verde Peninsula, I have spent at least 100 hours in that airspace, I would say. At least. I learned how to fly fixed wings at Torrance, which is right down there at the base, very close to Long Beach. So next thing you know, we're flying this helicopter from Long Beach Airport. We're flying over Long Beach Harbor, and she says, "Okay, we'll start some simple turns, and that's with the cyclic left and right, and move the cyclic left, and the helicopter turns. It doesn't turn the way an airplane does. It feels a little different. It feels like late, like it's slow on the response, because it's just vectoring the thrust. There's no aerodynamic. There is aerodynamic forces on the tail, but it's just not the same. It feels a little weird." So we got out over Long Beach. Then we turned off to Point Fermin and flew around the outside of the peninsula. And I'm sitting there, and we're keeping 80 knots, and I'm thinking, Came back around, flew over the Vincent Thomas Bridge, came back and landed, and then we did hover practice for about 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 something, 15. And I didn't do as well as I'd hoped, but I certainly didn't do as badly as I could have. The thing about the whole thing, I had to remind myself this 5 times in the air and 30 times on the ground. I'm sorry, 30 times in the hover. It's like, relax, dude. Just relax. You get this death grip, and that's not good. So I'm just, also I was looking down, which I should have known is real bad. You want to just keep your eyes on the horizon. So I was able to stay in the pad, and keep the thing pointed in the direction I wanted to go. And then we flew back, and I got out of the helicopter, and I shook hands and said, "Thank you very much. It's great. Just come on down. If you ever want to take more lessons, I'd love to." And then I got in the car, and Natasha, I dropped off at a mall nearby so she could just kind of rest and get coffee. And she said, how'd you like it? I said, I just didn't really. I just didn't. And I spent an hour trying to figure out why. And I think it came down to 2 things. It's not like I didn't like it. It's just it didn't do anything for me. I have no desire to go back and do it again. One of the issues was, I think, that when I first flew the first helicopters back in 88, 89, that was the first flying I'd ever done at all, period. And since then, I have 1,000 hours in the air, and I have, like I said, hundreds of them over pretty much the area that we went flying over. So I kind of knew the scenery. So 3 things. Second thing is, all we did was go from point A to point B. We didn't go out to a location. I was hoping we could go someplace, land, practice out in the field. But Long Beach, you're hours away from any other landing zone. Could have done it out of Van Nuys, but I wanted to do it in the Cambry. And that was really it. It's like we're flying at 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet. That's roughly what we were flying at before. And there's no place to land the thing. So the only reason I wanted to do it was to fly low, and if you want to go from point A to point B, a helicopter is about the worst way to do it. It's just uncomfortable, and it's not even uncomfortable. It's slow, and you gotta fly that thing all the time. So anyway, I've been looking forward to that quite a lot, and it was a bit of a disappointment. No reflection on the helicopter or the flight crew. It just didn't light me up the way I thought it would. Anyway, that's enough flying talk, because as people have mentioned already in the comments, once I get into that, I'm on the reel. So we'll just go right straight to questions today, so that I can kind of get back home and see how the ball and chain is doing. Yeah, let's see. All right, so yeah, it's been. I thought the stress would be done when I finished this series, and no, I've been invited to go to the American Stress Institute, and they asked me if I would be willing to be a living exhibit. I said, yeah, why not? Okay, let's see here, members. Come on. Member forum. I'm going to try and knock as many of these down I can. How you doing? Yeah, let's do it. Hang on. Stress-free launch questions and more. Stress-free launch questions and less. 3:23, which would be today. I had to postpone from yesterday. All right, let's see what we got. Let's see. Okay, this is cool. Ian Nolan is back, and he writes, about a year ago, I asked a question about the spiritual warfare component of our current political situation, which I think is only becoming more apparent. With your recent discussion of the groomer targeting in the Muslim women, I'm wondering if your opinion on the activeness of malevolent spiritual evil in our society has changed at all. That is a fantastically interesting question. And that deserves some real thought, because that is a large issue, and it's an issue that divides, a lot of our audience, not in a particularly negative way, at least not that I can tell, but it's certainly there. There are people who believe in God and supernatural activities, and then there are people who don't. And I've got an audience that consists of both of them. So I think that is actually worth a real serious response. So do I believe in malevolent, basically demonic forces at work? I would have said, certainly 8 or 10 years ago, I would have said, no, that's ridiculous. And my knee-jerk reaction, Ian, to that is, it doesn't matter. I know it's not, I don't want it to sound like a cop-out, but the reason I say it doesn't matter is because if there are, in fact, demonic supernatural forces at work, then what they are doing is indistinguishable from what they're doing if there weren't. I kind of botched that up. Let me try that again. If it turns out there are no demonic forces at work on the hands of the people that are trying to bring down this country, they're not behaving any differently than they would if they were demon possessed. That's a fairly strong statement to make, but so, like I said, it's a complex issue. So the things that lead me to believe that this is a supernatural level of evil is of all the things that come to mind. I think Zoe and I did a virtue signal about it. Is when I see young women, it's not a question of being pro-choice. When I see them actively celebrating it, like wallowing in it, in the abortion thing, really wallowing in it, celebrating it, like and of course, actual satanic worship is everywhere, and they're saying, "Oh no, Satan was, he was the good guy. He was the guy who was all about enlightenment and stuff, and he was trying to save humanity and free them and all the rest of it. And he's the prince of lies, whether he's real or not. That's his brand. I can't believe how many people worship Satan, knowing that his entire brand is he's a liar." And they say, "Well, he's a great guy, and he does this. What's the matter with you? What's the matter with you?" Now, Dave Big Booty, of course, is one of our all-time most valuable players and truck driver. He sees a lot of the real world. And talking about satanic influence, he writes in the Twitch stream, "The devil lost a fiddle contest to a hillbilly, even though he was cheating." Exactly. How competent can he be? Done told you once, you son of a bitch, I'm the best it's ever been. That song was awesome. I was in college, I think, when that came out. So let's get to the, Ian, I can't answer the question. No one can actually answer the question definitively and prove it. So what is out there that's making this seem like it's unleashed on Earth? There is a rage in a lot of these people at the entire idea of morality, especially Christian morality, but any kind of morality makes them murderous and furious. I'm talking about the extremists, obviously, but they're getting more and more common. Any sense of right and wrong, they vehemently attack. Any sense of or any evidence of deviation from the party line, the narrative, is ruthlessly punished with social extermination. You're a non-being now. You've been canceled, and people bandy that word around a lot, but it's not a joke. You're canceled. You're very difficult to make money. I know a fan of Odin's Men and JT and stuff, and he was demonetized, which he manages to mention probably every 20 minutes. Not that I don't blame him, but some blue-haired 23-year-old non-binary creature is determining what you get to hear, and they're either canceling or turning down people. And they, what it is about especially about the young activists, and so many of them are teachers. It's just astonishing how many of these teachers is the absolute arrogance of them, the certainty that that they've got it all figured out, and that they're going to enforce their will on you. Now, it's a quality of 20-year-olds to think that they've got everything all figured out. When I was 20, I thought I had everything all figured out. I was wrong about everything. So the only difference now is that now these people have, at the very least, the power of social proof behind them, and more rapidly every day, legal authority to simply say, no, we're going to do this. One of the things I saw that's out there that's just, is this sensitivity reading, right? They'll have some 21-year-old studies major, and they'll determine that, and by the way, here's your warning word. This word needs to be banned from the English language. I'm not in favor of banning words. I just don't ever want to hear this word said again. If anybody ever says problematic to me again, they're going to get punched, whether it's rhetorical or physical, depending on how close they are to my face when they say it. Problematic. Think about the arrogance of that. Well, I've been reading, Huckleberry Finn, and there's a lot of that book that's problematic. Oh, is there? Really? What's problematic about it? Well, they talk about, Jim, and they use all these terms, and they call him a slave and all the rest of the stuff. Well, that's what they were, and that's what they called him. And yeah, well, it's problematic. And I just want to take them, and I just want to take them like you would take a puppy and just rub their nose in it until they get the idea. It's like, listen, you idiot. Huckleberry Finn is one of the most important anti-racist books ever written. Ever. You cannot understand Huckleberry Finn if you don't understand the environment. The entire story is about a young boy who's been raised to believe that slaves are non-people, that they're non-entities, who makes friends with a slave, and then openly says in an internal conversation in his head says, I've been told by the church that anybody who helps a slave escape is going to go straight to hell. That's what I believe. Not just what I've been told, that's what I believe. Then I guess I'm going to hell because I'm helping Jim and I don't care. Just the power of that, But no, we can't even talk about it. So what happens is this, it's the same thing with the safety thing. Every generation gets more and more and more and more and more isolated, insisted is a better word, inside a cyst, enclosed inside a cyst. And we can't have anything that might upset us, so we get more upset about everything, and it gets to the point where it's like we're just perpetually upset all the time. I'm not talking about, adults. I'm talking about these grown children that are in charge of all of this tech stuff. They just, they're just unhappy all the time. Have you ever seen these people? Have you ever seen the woke crowd happy? Have you ever seen one of them ever just sit back and laugh and relax and just say, "Oh yeah, that's awesome"? Never. They're wired. They're educated and wired to be protesters. That's what they've been taught. That's the only thing they've been taught. They go sniffing around for injustice. I posted the wrong video yesterday on YouTube. I got it right on the other 7 places I have to post it. But they. What was the point about that wrong video? Come on, Billy, you can do it. So Steve's segment on, and I fixed it by the way. Steve's segment on Right Angle this week was that that pantries, that women are sharing pictures of when I say women, I'm not a biologist. I'm just I'm saying they're primarily chest feeders. And they're sharing pictures of their pantry. And a learned professor with a PhD came out and said, this is racist. Well, why is it racist? Well, because it's just basically saying that white women have these nice pantries and there's not enough representation of black or pantries of color. That's what POC stands for, by the way, pantries of color. And I thought, you miserable racist swine, this woman. What you're saying is, you're saying that women sharing pictures of their pantries, if most of them are white, what you're really saying is that it's racist because black women or Hispanic women's pantries are either so poorly stocked or so badly organized and such a mess that they can't bear to show it, right? So they've invented a new racist particle. They've come up with a new, they've run it through the cyclotron and they've come up with a new racist thing to get excited about, and that is not about black people not having any food or anything. That'd be genuine injustice. No, it's that white people are sharing pictures of their pantries on social media, and that's a sign not only of racism but also white supremacy. And what do you say to that? It is. Look, everybody, I get it. It is getting unbearable out there, unbelievably stupid, and it's enough to fill you with just despair and resignation and so on. I had a dear friend of mine, well, Bobby, I don't know if you're watching, Bobby Trick's watching, Phil's wife, she said, what do we do about this? My God, you just linked me an article to another one of these things, and you could just feel the frustration and the despair and the hopelessness. Like, what do we do? It's just like, this just keeps on going. It goes and goes and goes. It gets bigger and bigger all the time. What do we do? And I told her what I've been using as my comfort, and that's, we talked about this a couple shows ago, that the redoubt of reality, the reality fortress that nothing can break down. All of the angst that we're going through is angst generated at trying to stop this because we know what's going to happen, right? When an 8-year-old or a 12-year-old says, I'm a girl, 12-year-old boy says, I'm a girl, and the first thing to happen is, oh, well, let's get you to a clinic. We'll put you on puberty blockers immediately. When we experience this kind of thing and we get so wound up about this, rightfully so, talking about Jeffrey Marsh before and all the rest of these lunatics and perverts. You get to the point where it's like the lunatics and perverts are winning. There's just more of them. They're multiplying. And I don't disagree with that, right? I don't disagree. But I think the only thing you can do now to maintain your sanity is to take a pro tip from a guy who does this for a living, and that is understand that this is not happening to you or the people you love. It's happening to other people, and the emotional driver of this on our part is we are trying to save these people from themselves. In the case of minors, they're innocent people. They're, you got an 8-year-old transitioning or a 6-year-old, or my son is 3 and he's already non-binary. You've got a very sick parent. That's who needs to be in trouble on this, but it's not your kid, right? I mean, ultimately you have to just sit back and say, just have to sit back and say, okay, we've done everything we can to try to protect you from yourselves, and it hasn't worked. So keep printing money, keep giving puberty blockers to 8-year-olds, keep telling women they can sleep with as many men as they want to, and be boss bitches, and have the $400,000 apartment, and have the brand new car. Also, you'll get a high value man who will be loyal to you only and give you children and let you stay home and not work, and all the rest of this stuff. Everything that they're doing is deeply programmed into them, has been from birth for 3 generations now, and it's just nothing that the rest of us can do except sit back and watch. I think it's probably, talking about good and evil, I want to say half the time, in fact, more than half the time, I want to say, grab your popcorn, sit back and watch, right? Like, enjoy it. Like, watch this happen. But it's not, none of it is it's their responsibility, but it's not their fault, right? I saw that Sad Wings Raging has, somebody saw it the first time a couple of days ago, said, make asylums great again. Yeah. It just ultimately you don't want to, if you find yourself, look, when we did the show on pantry shaming, we just laughed and laughed and laughed because that's ridiculous, and there's nobody's being harmed by that ridiculousness. But when you look at what's actually happening to kids and to inner cities and all the rest of it, it's a catastrophe, it's a tragedy, and I don't think the good people should be celebrating bad things happening, even if those bad things are happening to people who are your enemies and who want you off the earth. That's the difference between us and them. I don't want anything bad to happen to these people. I want these bad ideas to go away. I'm dedicated to protecting them from these bad ideas with good ideas, but I don't have to. The people who get the message don't need to hear me. Actually, they do, because it comes a point where it's just like the artillery just gets so loud. You just need a guy going down the line saying, steady, steady, steady on. Check your ammunition, aim low. So reality will win because reality is reality. And if reality was pointing in a different direction, I'd have different politics. So there you go. Bart, I don't know if I really know what to say about that comment. Bill is rambling, hit the reset. This is a rambling show. This is what I do, Bart. The whole show's about rambling. I don't have a script here. I don't have notes. I don't know what I'm going to be asked, and I don't have a series of planned replies. Somebody asked me a question, and I'm just thinking out loud. That's what I do. So I don't know what to do about the rambling, but I think probably you can find other programs that are considerably more concise than this. Anyway, there is going to be a reckoning, and we're already seeing it. We're seeing young women who don't understand why they're 23 years old, have slept with 60 different men, and nobody wants to marry them. They can't figure that out. There are women who are in their late 30s, early 40s, mid 50s, got the job, got the house, own my own house outright. I've got a fantastic job, make $300,000 a year. I've got a Mercedes-Benz, and Kevin Samuels is saying, we don't care. And I just thought, my God, that is a cold-hearted thing to say, but he's right. We don't care. I don't care how much money women bring to the table, because it's not going to get spent. It's going to be her money, always, right? We don't care. It's not what we're interested in. And it's beginning to dawn on these women that they've been lied to, and they're learning it the only way they can learn something, and that is through intense pain. They're coming home every night alone, and that's causing them to rethink their politics. They're not going to suddenly switch over to being conservatives because of this. They just don't know why everything is wrong. And so on some level, it's like, what is it going to take? I saw something today. I saw a video called San Francisco Has Fallen. And you simply won't believe this if you haven't seen it already. Forget about the drug deals and the needles on the street and the human feces and the homelessness and all the rest of that stuff. I'm talking about, thank you very much for that deplorable boomer rube. I'm one myself. Keep it coming, Bill. We need encouragement and truth. Now, in San Francisco and Oakland, there are gangs of men walking down the street, smashing windows on cars and pulling out whatever is visible in broad daylight. Broad daylight. And sometimes they're doing it while the cars are driving. Somebody stopped at a traffic light and the guys jump out and they got a baseball bat, smash the back window. If they see anything in the car that looks like a duffel bag or a suitcase, they just go grab it. And when these people call the police say, we're not allowed to do anything about it. First of all, our budgets are cut. Secondly, we've been told not to interfere with the community. We've been told not to aggravate the community. And we've been specifically told not to respond to those kind of things. So there's a police car cruising through, saw it today, cruising through the streets of San Francisco, homeless tents on both sides, crazy people screaming at the air. They're just driving through, it's like driving through Mogadishu. It's like, keep the windows up, pray you've got armored bulletproof glass, and just keep on going. And now the people that live in San Francisco are getting what they voted for, and they're going to keep getting it. They're going to keep getting it. These people would rather, I don't know if they would rather die than change their mind, but they certainly had a chance to change their minds quite a long time ago. They could see what was coming and what is arriving, but they keep voting for it. Okay. All right. Your problem, San Francisco, that's not Dallas's problem. And it's certainly not, Orlando's problem. You guys want to vote for this? This is what you get. Gavin Newsom is their polar star, their god. They worship him because he's good looking, he's got a great haircut, and he says clever things at cocktail parties. That's all they care about in terms of governance. That's all they care about. So, knock yourself out, guys. But what is driving this? What's driving it is evil. The people who are pushing this from above. This trans stuff is not just a bunch of lunatics. They're meeting with the President of the United States. Legislation is being passed that covers the cost of this. The so-called President of the United States said that what they're doing in Florida is just cruel. How can they treat human beings that way? Well, Joe, instead of us groping 8-year-olds and smelling their hair, some of us are determined to make sure that they don't fall into a machine that is going to chew them up in order to make yet another class of victims. We're trying to prevent them from having body parts lopped off and being given chemicals to essentially castrate them for the rest of their lives because we care about them. You're the one who's cruel, although you're too far gone to know what it means. Right? They're just garbage people. And Biden is not only the most idiotic president we've ever had, or the most corrupt. He is. Every day that goes by, the amount of checks that he's getting from so many different sources. I'm getting a check from Ukrainian gas. I'm getting a check from the the Chinese Communist Party. I'm getting checks from these guys. I'm getting checks from pharma. I'm getting checks from everybody. It's like, what do you do? I don't think there's anything you can do about this except to say we've done our best to protect you from yourselves and we failed. And now you're going to have to face the consequences that are not visible to you, but are visible to us. And whether you end up changing your mind or not is essentially irrelevant. Just stay the hell out of my state, really. That's really what it comes down to. So when you have a guy who takes money from the strategic, economic, and political and moral antithesis of America, namely the Chinese Communist Party, when you have a president of the United States gets paid by them, forget terms like treason. That's just an old-fashioned word that's not used anymore. You just have to ask yourself what kind of a person puts themselves ahead of their country? What kind of person puts their own benefit ahead of the livelihood and welfare of 300 million people who have trusted them? Yeah, probably closer to 40 million people, but you get the idea. What kind of person does that? This is where we run into this kind of, we just get into Norman coordinate and smoke comes out of our ears. Eric says we should be going for the school boards. Yes. And so now, well, not just school boards, now they're passing legislation in certain states like Florida to prevent this. And the left, of course, is saying, here's all the evidence you need. They're testifying at these hearings saying this is genocide against trans people. So they love the language. It's literally genocide. It's literally what the Nazis did in Germany to the Jews. Literally the same thing. It's literally exactly the same thing. And I say, you're right. It is literally the same thing, except that there's no 12 million dead people. Other than that, it is literally the same. Okay. So if we can't convince them otherwise, then what happens? Now we're going to have a generation where being trans is like having a poodle skirt or a hula hoop or having a chopper bike or being the first guy with the PlayStation or whatever the status symbol is for kids, right? That's what they're going to get. Something floating through the air. And those kids are going to be, their lives are going to be ruined. And then they're going to be angry. And then I don't know what's going to happen. I just know that at this point it's like, is it happening to me or anybody I care about? No. Okay. All right. We need to stick together. And so on. So everybody's talking about these solutions. They're great. Run for the school board is great. Eliminate the Department of Education. That's great. You're never going to eliminate the Department of Education. It's just never going to happen. It's all going to come down at the same time. It's just, I wish it were different. I've been working my entire professional career to make it different, but it's not different. That's how people are. You know, the Challenger went up with knowing that there were O-rings burn-throughs, but they went anyway. And the new foam was coming off of the external tank when they launched Columbia, and they went anyway. And they knew that there were icebergs in the North Atlantic when they tried to set a speed record with Titanic, but they did it anyway. That's just the way it is with people. If it hasn't happened today and didn't happen yesterday, then it probably won't happen tomorrow. Okay, so off you go, off you go. We're in a place now where I think instead of prevention, we need to be in a place of protection, right? Instead of trying to avert this apocalypse, which is what we've been trying to do for 20 years now. Now it's like, okay, well, we did our best. Now what we're going to do is when this wildfire comes, we're going to protect our people. And by our people, I simply mean the people who aren't either demonic or insane or both. Let's see. There's a first-time chat from Wolf's Region. No one cares until the fire is under their ass, at which point it's too late. Comfort has bred apathy. Precisely correct. And it's only people like us who are watching this. I don't mean just us, but essentially conservatives. The reason you're conservative is because you understand history. You look at what happened to people again and again and again and again. Many of the conclusions you draw are not particularly comforting conclusions about human nature, but you'd rather be right than feel good. So you attune your behavior accordingly, and you live in harmony with reality. You accept the good stuff and the bad stuff, and it's just the way it is. And you don't try to imagine yourself into a world that doesn't exist. Because if it did exist, we'd all be there. Be no problem. But it doesn't. So we aren't. Anyway, that's it. So back to the question again, the evil question. When I say, it just Came up again, Lutheran Carnivore said, when I say evil and demonic, do you mean that literally? Up until a short time ago, and it wasn't like a day or an epiphany, it was just a process that took 10 or 15 years. Today, I can't see any other explanation for it. I've been having a lot of unusual thoughts about a lot of things. I'm beginning to think that life, which I used to think was common throughout the universe, more I really learn about things like protein folding and the complexity of DNA that doesn't have a version 1.0. It's just there. I begin to look at this entire experience in an entirely different way. I think things like the Big Bang, is like, yes, this is a very so let me see if I can get this. I know I'm all over the place, but I can't help it. I'm just thinking through it all the time. So the Big Bang Theory, right? It's a good model for understanding what happened. In fact, it's such a good model of what happened that it makes sense back to a few, what are these, picoseconds or something? A few millionths or a billionth of a second after the Big Bang. We can run the clock back all the way to there. So we understand the how really well. But nobody understands the why. And we have been led to believe that the why is irrelevant, that there is no why, that why is just, it just happened. And okay, I mean, I believed that worldview for a long time, but why is more than just a human philosophical construct, I keep coming back to my friend Jim Harding, who's really changed my thinking about so much of this. And he sent me a text just the other day saying, he said that wonder is evidence of divinity. And I thought, that's actually really important. He also said that nature's never wrong. And what does that mean? Jim, he said, well, birds will always do what birds are supposed to do. The only creatures that ever make mistakes or err are humans, because we're the only ones that are self-aware enough to want to change our programming. There's nothing a bird does that is unnatural. There are no unnatural birds. There's no unnatural chimps. And when we discovered, not too long ago, in the 70s, I guess, when Jane Goodall went out there, to document these gentle, kind, our furry friends, our furry cousins in the forest, and look at how gentle and kind they are compared to us and our horrible killer ape warlike mutation. And then she finds that they're beating other people's children to death, and they're ripping monkeys out of the trees and eating them raw, and they're ganging up on people they don't like socially and beating them to death, and they're just murder machines. It's like they're doing what they're not doing anything wrong. Nature is never wrong. They're doing what they do. It's what they do. And we're the ones who have a moral sense. It's back to Twain again. Mark Twain said, that dogs get into heaven much more likely than humans, because dogs don't commit evil, because dogs don't have a choice on what they do. There are no evil things that dogs do. You can look at something that a dog does that you don't like and is emotionally disturbing, like a dog tearing up a cat or something like that. That's not fun to watch, but it's not evil. And so the further away you get from this idea of a reality, of a natural reality, the more insane you become. It's fashionable, not only fashionable, it's de rigueur among the left to think that humans are cancer on the planet. Right? We're just uniquely evil. We're destroying the planet, according to them, which will happen any day now. And if we would just go away, then everything would be fine. They've been trained to think that by the people who want them to go away, but they're not going to go away themselves, those people. So you see this, and I look around and I say, I don't see any evidence of this, of us being this killer species. Yeah, I see a lot of war and a lot of cruelty, but I see that in other species too. What I don't see in other species is acts of kindness. I don't see that. I see chimps murdering each other, and I see chimps grooming each other, but I don't see acts of actual kindness. And when you look at all of these animal rescue things, Natasha and I were looking at this last night. She showed me videos of a crow a crow had picked up a piece of plastic, like a plastic container, took it to the top of a highly sloped roof that was covered in snow, and surfed down the rope, the roof, surfed down it. Pushed it to the edge, got on it, and surfed down. And as soon as he got to the bottom, he picked it up again, flew up to the top, moved over a little bit, surfed it down again. He's just having fun. He's playing. But I don't see animals rescuing other animals, and we do that all the time. And every time I see different animal species interacting with each other affectionately, like you'll see a dog and a cat cuddling each other, and sometimes you'll see a cat with a bird cuddling, or a raccoon will move into the house and gets along fine with the cats and dogs. Every time I see this, the only reason it happens is because humans are there to feed them. If humans weren't feeding them, then pretty soon the animals that ate other animals would be eating the other animals. That's we create these little paradises where a cockatoo and a bobcat can, they're friends, they grew up together. Yeah, they are. They're playing with each other. Yes, they are. But they're only playing with each other because humans are here. If they were out in the wild, they wouldn't be doing this. And so I don't buy this whole killer ape thing. I never did. And when I think about how much we accomplish with this cantaloupe-sized jelly thing that we're sitting under, it's amazing. I simply I just love I think people are awesome. I think they're fantastic. I never ever get tired of saying, we did what? We did what? We shot a bullet at a bullet in outer space, hit a asteroid that was orbiting another asteroid millions and millions of miles away. We did that? Yes, we did. Wow. Seb Gwev 234 says, give me a shout out. Chinese imperialism. Hi. Well, there you go. And congratulations. Hope that did it for you. If you need some more shouting out, I'm happy to provide it because it's no skin off of my nose. All right, let me go on here. But I really don't. We are an astonishing species by any definition. Astonishing. And humans have never been better than they are at America when America was at its most American. When this experiment happened in 1776 and you had people living free to do what they want to do, people have never behaved better than that. That doesn't mean there weren't problems, but it does mean that experiment allowed us to solve those problems. In other words, yes, there was slavery. There's always been slavery. It's a Western society that ends slavery. There's slavery in the world today. The Russian people were slaves. There were 90 million serfs. It's the American experiment, the Western experiment, that basically says, yes, these are awful things. We need to get rid of them. And we'd always hunted whales since humans have gone out to sea. And when we had the means to do it industrially, we damn near killed them all off. And then we suddenly realized this is wrong. We stopped doing it. And now they're coming back. I've said this before because it's just so striking to me, but I continually see videos on YouTube of like, oh, look, we're off the channel in Santa Barbara. It's a blue whale. Look at the size of that thing. A blue whale is beautiful, by the way. The just color of these animals, phenomenal. A blue whale. Yeah, there's a blue whale showing up everywhere. I was 7 years old, 8 years old when my dad took me to the Museum of Natural History in New York City, pointed to a plaster blue whale, life-size, hanging from the ceiling, and said, Bill, that was the largest animal that ever lived. By the time you get to be 20 are old enough to see at 15 they're going to be gone. They're all going to be gone. And he was right. They were heading that way. But now they're not. Buffalo were hunted nearly to extinction. Now they're everywhere. Bald eagles were a miracle to see one. Now I've seen photos of 40 of them sitting in the same yard. Just 40 of them, 40 bald eagles. It's because we used to do bad things, and then we realized they were bad, and we stopped doing them. I don't know of anybody else that does that. I really don't. And even, and I'm moving on after this, but even the things that many humans find to be cruel are not cruel compared to the alternative. And I'll give you the classic example, right? I don't know why. I can't explain it. It's very off character for me, off brand. My wife doesn't hold it against me, but she certainly can't stand to watch it. But I just have a fascination with these feral hogs, and these guys going after these things with thermal imaging at nighttime. I just want to do that so much. I never thought I could shoot another animal. I see those pigs out there, and I just want to, let's call it an airstrike. And so when people see hunting videos of these guys knocking down these hogs, and if you hit them just right, you would thought in the head. It's not. It's actually in the top of the base of the neck. You hit them just right, they just keel over. Their legs are solid, and they just go out. And people look at this and they go, "Oh boy, this is so evil and so cruel of you." And I say to myself, you can say that because you just watched, and these little piglets they got to go too. They're in 3 months they're sexually mature, and they're going to make. I know what geometric progression looks like. If we don't do this now, we are going to. Then it won't be humans taking their numbers down. It'll be starvation after they've eaten all of our food. But my point is, when humans look at YouTube videos of these guys gunning these hogs, they say, "That's so cruel, it's so cruel." It's like, compared to what? This is like a pet peeve of mine. Anytime I hear people saying those hunters are so cruel. Compared to what? Right? People are so far removed from reality that they think that if that guy didn't shoot that buck, then that buck would eventually grow older, and then the younger children would eventually feed him and take care of him, and then the buck would find a nice, beautiful place of grass, and he would simply quietly fall asleep, surrounded by his loving family, and he'd go off to the buck retirement paradise. No animal dies of old age, unless they're a pet, unless they're a human pet. There are no animals die of old age in this world. Right? What happens is, as they get older and older and older, they become less and less able to resist predators. And then what happens is, if you think shooting a hog is cruel, I can show you some pictures of hogs and piglets being eaten alive by lions and bears, squealing the whole time with this kind of look in their eyes. It starts off as fear and then just becomes resignation. So those are the choices. It's not like the pig just lives and goes on to pig heaven and just gets to wallow around it. It's either he gets shot or he gets eaten alive or he starves to death. Those are the three choices. So we don't have anybody who's able to provide just this fundamental frame. It's not even perspective or what's the word I'm looking for? Come on, tip of my tongue. Context. It's not even about that. It's just about fundamental reality, right? Okay, hang on. Eric Blake says, as they say every time, Bill, there are two things you must bring to a feral hog hunt: an Elon Musk, not a flamethrower, and 1,000 gallons of barbecue sauce. Yeah. And these damn things are, and been on this topic forever. Is that I try to make this quick. There's one thing I think that makes me not only willing but anxious to go out and shoot those bastards. And I think most of it is the fact that it's our land. It's not even our land. It's our farms, right? I see feral pigs in the wood, and I think, okay, well, it's no problem. But when I see them rooting up an entire plowed field, when I just see them just tearing this thing up, it's like, I feel like they're looters. It's like, who do you think you are? Get the hell off of my land, you miserable bastards. I'd love to plug those things. I just would. It's wired in me. I see these things. That first shot goes out and they start running and scattering, and I'm just like, we can't let any of them get by. You got to get 70% of them just to hold the line, right? Every time I see one of these things walking away, I just think, oh, for God's sakes, we need to get serious here. All right. Anyway, that was a real quick one. Here we go. Broke college student. One quick aside, then the question. I think your aggressive pushback several weeks ago about how the U.S. is morally better than Russia is like the Doolittle raid. It doesn't do much damage, but seeing a return punch is good for morale. Here you go. It's kind of an interesting way to say it. Okay, there's a lot, but I'm trying to keep it short, so it's still pretty long here. Let me see what we got here. I'm going to see if I can paraphrase this. So large Muslim populations are moving to European countries, resulting in more rapes in Sweden. Yes. And Ian Hersey wrote a book called Prey, discussing how this caused working-class women to retreat from society due to Muslim populations in Scandinavia. True. The rape gangs that went on for years abusing working-class girls in Britain are also an example, especially since the police did not do much about it for fear of being labeled Islamophobic. There you go. I don't remember what year it was. I want to say it was 2010 or 11, somewhere in there. And somebody had a statistic, and it was like, what percentage of total rapes in Oslo were committed by foreigners in the last 5 years? And it was 100%. 100%. Okay. Large numbers of poor urban black Americans choose to self-segregate and are responsible for 50% of the murders. That's also true. When Black Lives Matter talks about we got to stop cops killing black people, if you take last year, I looked up the statistics, 2017, of all the black males that are killed in America in the course of a given year, 4% of them are killed by cops, 4% out of 100. And that includes cases where the guy may walk up to a cop, shoots at him, hits him, and then the cop shoots back and kill him. So it's not just like cops just deciding just to, off a guy or it's just 4%. So if you're telling me that we're going to go at the 4% and we're going to intentionally ignore the 96%, then you're not serious about your problem. CCP agents enter American universities as students and faculty to steal research. Even if 1% of Chinese students report the CCP, that's a major security risk. Yes. Americans had a hostile stance towards Germans, Japanese, and Russians when we were in conflict with them. In antiquity, the minority would have been killed or exiled. Yes. To what extent do Americans need to view these groups as groups to address the problems created by them? Where on the spectrum of tribalism, from David Duke to the Brotherhood of Man, do we need to be to resolve this? Is it possible that conservatives are too naive when it comes to being tribal? I don't think naive is our problem. I think naive is the left's problem. This is it's not a difficult moral equation. It's just maybe difficult to enforce. The country was built on immigrants. Yes, that's absolutely true. And America is the place for the immigrant dream. Yes, that's also true. Right? That should apply to all people. And when they open it up from European immigration to other countries, that seems fair to me. But when they lock out European immigration and only allow in people from third world countries, that's not fair either. If you're going to be a guest at somebody's party, it's usually polite to bring something. And when you bring something, it doesn't matter if it's baked beans or a $300 bottle of scotch, bring something. And when you bring lawlessness and crime, that's one thing. But when you decide, you're not only you're not going to bring anything, you're going to tell everybody else at the party what to eat and how. No, you can leave now. The immigration system actually works relatively well, and I know this from personal experience, because when I married a Russian woman, we applied for her green card status. We had to prove to an individual. We didn't have to meet a standard. That would have not bothered me at all. If there had been a standard, you must show this, and this. Okay, that's a standard. But we had to go and sit with an immigration agent, and we had to convince this one individual that we were actually in love and wanted to get married. He said, "I've decided to approve this." I thought, made my blood run cold. What if you decided not to? How do you get to decide? Anyway, we did that. We had immigration attorneys who spent thousands of dollars on this. We went through the provisional green card for whatever it was, a year. And then she had the regular green card issued to her, permanent residency. And then I think it was maybe 2 years on the provisional green card. And then 1 year before once you got the permanent green card, then a year after that, you could apply for citizenship. So that's what we did. And then in August, she stood out in a courtyard with a bunch of other people who'd gone through the exact same progress from all different parts of the world. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. And when she was done, I said, honey, you're as American as I am, and you always will be, and no one can kick you out of the country. They put you in jail, but they can't kick you out of the country. This is your home now. And she loves America. And she spent 7 weeks in Bali with her daughter. She hasn't seen in 6 years. Because the daughter could get there, and Natasha could get there, so that's where they went. And I said, how did it feel to travel on a U.S. passport? And she actually started to tear up, On a Russian passport, you can't go anywhere on a Russian passport. You can't go to Europe, you can't fly to London, you can't do any of that stuff on a Russian passport. The only place the Russian passport's going to come useful for her is when she goes back to Russia to visit. But all of a sudden now she's, before she ever got the citizenship, when we would go, last vacation I think it was in 2019? Yeah. January. We were there for New Year's on 2019, I think. Anyway, we'd come back, and she had a Russian passport with an American green card. I had an American passport, and we'd come back into LAX, which is not exactly the most cozy point of entry in the country. But we'd come back, and I'd hand him the passport. He'd ask me a couple of questions, and he'd say, welcome home. And she couldn't believe it. They don't say that in Russia? No, they don't say that in Russia. They don't say welcome home in Russia. Are you kidding me? So, your question here about your stance towards foreign agents who are hostile, it's no question. During World War II, there were Japanese spies in this country, there were German spies in this country. And those people needed to be dealt with, but they needed to be dealt with as individuals because the overwhelming majority of German Americans, Japanese Americans, when I say the overwhelming majority, it's much, much, much bigger than 99%, right? It's 99.999 something percent of these people were loyal Americans that had nothing to do with their countries, went to fight against the countries that they had come from. So putting these people in internment camps takes a Democratic president to do that. So you just have to look at it like a problem. Are there Japanese spies on the West Coast? Absolutely, yes. Do we just let them go? No. We root them out and we punish them. But we don't punish everybody. This is what we used to have an intelligence agency for. Instead of spying on the American people so that they can get their political objectives done, we used to have things like the FBI to determine which one of these enormous crowds of innocent people are guilty. And we don't investigate all of them. We don't assume all of them are guilty. We start tracing the leads backwards and find out where these spies are. And to the degree that their spies are here, you politely ask them to leave, right? And then you keep your eye on the door. But when you just allow anybody into the country, then they're bringing with them the thing that they're trying to escape from. If the first act you commit in America is a crime, just by walking across the border, why are you leaving where you came from? Why are you leaving Venezuela? Well, it's a terrible crime there, and there's no economic opportunities, so I'm coming to America. So the first thing you're doing to escape legal injustice and economic injustice, lawlessness, legal lawlessness, economic lawlessness, first thing you're doing is coming here and breaking the law. You're bringing it with you. If you really want to be here, this is what I brought up, Natasha. If you really want to be here, okay, prove it. If you really want to be here, you can get here. Prove it. We've had Julius and a number of other people. It's been one of the greatest honors of this show is to have had a number of people who are fans I'm not saying they came because of me, but they're fans of the work that we do, who have immigrated to the United States legally, joined the military in several cases, And now they're Americans. Makes me happy as I can be. Ronald Reagan, if it's good enough for Ronald Reagan, usually good enough for me. Ronald Reagan said that these were Americans I say they're just Americans born overseas. Those people we should be welcoming with open arms, because if they want it badly enough to get here, then they will be patriotic, productive American citizens. I just wish we could trade out Berkeley professors for. I do it on a one-to-one basis. There's a first-time chat from somebody whose name is in pink letters, and I will not be able to make it out of it. The popcorn monger, yeah. Like all those Italians that brought the mob over. See, that's a great example. Yes, exactly. So that applies to Islam. It applies to Mexican drug cartels. It applies to Colombian drug cartels. It applies to all of it. The huge number of Italians that came to this country, came to America, worked hard, fought in World War II, and died for their country. But some of them brought the mafia with them. And we should have done something about that. Most Italian Americans, I don't like to have any words, most Americans of Italian descent despise the mafia because they know it makes them look at, because it's become a cliche for them. That's the particular set of poison that they brought. Other people bring different poisons, from different places. And it's not all of them. In fact, it's a very small number, but, you got to deal with it. So the question about Islamic stuff and stuff is no. We should allow anybody who wants to come here if they do it legally, because doing it legally is difficult. It's supposed to be difficult. If you want it badly enough to be a good American, then you'll go through it. You'll find a way. If, on the other hand, you're just looking for a handout or a paycheck, you just step across the border, no problem, right? Just keep voting D. That'll do it. All right. Trying to move this. What's that sea shanty? And we'll roll. We'll roll the old chariot along. We'll roll the old chariot along. And we'll all hang on behind. I think. Great chanting. Let's see. Let's see if I got most of that for you there. So, yeah. So, broke college student, I guess you've gotten what I was getting at here. He lists a bunch of examples. Muslims who want to live in America, who want to practice their religion without enforcing it on anybody else, have as much right to be here as anybody else. They got to come in legally and so on. When they start saying things like we need Sharia laws, or we're going to start enforcing this in our neighborhood, or we don't want to hear the sound of church bells, then it's like, no. You came in by accident because you clearly don't get what this country's about. Come in, live your life, that's fantastic. None of us are going to tell you what to do. But when you start trying to change this thing to make it more like what you're running away from, then the rest of us are going to have a problem with it. Epic Guest for a super chat says, the supposed weakness of Americans is their love for immigrants, and over time we'll always win because we live immigrants. I guess it's love immigrants. We're all immigrants. And that's why we have a unique perspective on the world, by the way. That's why America's... if you're really getting pissed off by somebody from another country, if you're getting into an online, troll flamethrower contest with anybody other than America, this is just a lovely little stiletto you can pull out. So almost always be bitching about American this or American that. Then what I just love to do is say, okay, we've been talking about America's problems. Where are you from? Germany, let's say. Oh, okay. Well, you probably want to know what we think about Germans then, huh? Yes, I do. Well, we don't. We don't think about you at all. We don't know who your pop stars are. We don't know who your musicians are. We know some of the classical musicians, but we don't wear T-shirts with German letters, with German words. We don't do any of that. We just don't care. That tends to knock the wind out of them. Oh, America is right. Yeah. Well, what about you? You want to know what we think about you? Yes. What do you think about Canadians? We don't. We don't think about you at all. And that's because we have the whole world here with us. That's why America is so unique. The whole world lives here. And everybody's obsessed with us, and everybody hates us except when they have a chance to come here, and then it's like the prom queen, right? I think that's a P.G. O'Rourke. I'm virtually, in fact, I know it was P.G. O'Rourke. It's why I loved him so much. P.G. O'Rourke is the guy that made me a conservative, no question, because he was so cool and so funny and had such an edge and such a fresh take on things. He just made me realize I was wrong about so many things. But P.J. O'Rourke said, yeah, other countries' relationship to America is like most kids, nerdy kids' reaction to the prom queen, right? They love the prom queen, got a crush on the prom queen, want to go out with the prom queen. But when the prom queen says no to them, then all of a sudden the prom queen must die, right? It's like, oh, she's a stuck-up bitch. It's like, no, she's just not into you. So, anyway, I love doing that. It just makes me happy. Yeah, I have some fond memories of that. No, I was not always conservative. I was a theater major, so I believed virtually all of the liberal stuff. However, in my own defense, I will say this. Even though I was surrounded by, completely immersed in leftist thinking in college, I never hated America. I always loved the military and wanted to serve in the military, and I always loved capitalism. I always thought that was the way to go. People would say, you should get a grant. It's like, why do I want to get a grant to make a movie? No. Why would I want to do that? That's just, no. So I was just misinformed, but my heart was in the right place, I think. Okay, back we go to the... there we go. Broke college student with a happier question now. Let me see if I can catch somebody else here real quick. John West. Considering that arguably the actual problem we're facing is that our elites do not share our values, could a convention of states actually accomplish anything along the lines of returning the federal government to a less corrupt, less intrusive, less expansive version? And if so, what amendments would be most impactful in your opinion? If not, how do we facilitate a circulation of elite civility? Or should we concentrate on efforts to preserving our own values in enclaves sort of like modern-day Noah's Arks and wait out the inevitable chaos? It's beautifully said. I wish I'd read that before I did the first hour of spinning around. Yeah, that's where I am now. John, I'm at the Noah's Ark stage now only because I've tried to be everywhere else and it hasn't worked. So, thank you for that. Lutheran Carnivore said I should do a documentary on Ronald Reagan. Every time I think about how wrong I was about Ronald Reagan, I feel so guilty. Ronald Reagan has said I didn't leave the Democratic Party. Democratic Party left me. And I did a number of speaking events at the Reagan Library. And on all three of those, when I was been there many times for events, but three of them I spoke at. And all three times I went out to the outside in the corner. There's not terribly prominent is where he's actually interred. You see the Pacific Ocean from there. And I've just kind of gone out there and sort of apologized and told him I was doing the best I could to make up for all the mean things I believed about him when I was an idiot. And Reagan, by the way, Reagan was obviously a Democrat and I don't think Reagan was ever liberal. It certainly was never liberal by the modern. Nobody in Hollywood was liberal by the modern definition. No humans have ever been liberal by the modern definition. But Reagan was a movie star and he was caught up in that whole thing. That's all about ego and stuff. The thing about Reagan's interesting is he was a lifeguard before he became an actor. I knew the numbers. When did I write this about him? In the final episode of the Cold War series, I talk about Reagan. I'm going to invent a number. I just don't remember what it was. But let's say, for the sake of the argument, it was it 77 people? No. Infidel 42 that he saved as a lifeguard? That can't be. I thought it was 36 or something. Somebody can get access to Google or whatever. Reagan's as a lifeguard saved a number of lives. I thought it was like 36. Anyway, let's say it's 36 because I'm relatively sure it's close to that number. So Reagan, as a lifeguard, saved, it was 77. Dave Big Booty, okay, because that was the one I was looking for 78. Well, I'm amazed. So here's the thing about Ronald Reagan. Before he became an actor and before he became a politician, he was a lifeguard. He saved 77 people from drowning. He's a big athletic guy, Dutch Reagan. He saved people's lives for a living. That's what he did. He saved 77 people. And I mentioned this in the Cold War episode on him. And that attitude went with him and stayed with him. And then, this is just why I put it in the final Cold War episode, because it just says so much about the guy, especially after all the time I've spent with the Soviets lately. So he saved 77 people. He was governor of California. He was at a party in the governor's mansion in California, which is currently occupied by Gruesome. And there were a number of people there, a lot of press there, lots and lots of donors, and so there's a lot of handshakes and a lot of back patting and a lot of meet this person and come over here, and lines of people waiting to speak to the governor and all the rest of it. So I don't know, 50, 100 people in his backyard or something like this. And Reagan's doing the Reagan thing. He's got his full suit on, his nice shoes, his tie, everything. He's ready to go. Watch, wallet, all that. And at one point, this is the thing that impressed me the most. It's not like somebody came up to him and said, something's wrong. He noticed something was wrong. He was so used to saving lives and checking things out that after a few moments, he realized that somebody was missing. And who was missing was a young black girl, somewhere around 8 or 9, maybe 12, 13 at the most. She had gone up to the pool at the governor's mansion, and she didn't know how to swim, but she saw like a little raft floating there. So she leaned over, wanted to grab the raft and just kind of float along. She missed it, went down, and is at the bottom of the pool. Reagan didn't see her go in. He just realized somebody was missing. So he starts walking in that direction pretty quick, and then he sees that there's this girl down at the bottom. She's still moving, and he doesn't hesitate for a second. He doesn't kick off his shoes or say, hold my watch or while, just dives in there, grabs this girl, pulls her to the surface, saves her life. And so it ended up being 78. And certainly 78. Arguably 4 billion, maybe 5. Joseph Stalin saved his future wife from drowning. His second wife was 3 and he was like 26 or something. And she was very impressed with him, but he didn't do that for a living. None of these. Lenin never interacted with anybody. Lenin was talking about people dying, how good it would be if they all died from famine when he was, 17, because then he'd be able to take power. So there is a moral difference between this country and the Soviet Union, a moral difference between us and the rest of the countries too. And if you can't see it, then because you're intentionally looking the other way. All right, here we go. Roadrunner. Anyway, I'm sorry if I didn't get to you there, John. Basically, I don't think there's any answer. I talked about this at the beginning. I don't think there's any. Look, when you owe $35 trillion, that's not recoverable. Let me rephrase that. It's not amendable, right? There's going to be some kind of great reset. It's been steered that way, and there's no other way around it. There's no way around it. That $35 trillion is such an... Try to imagine having a government that ran surpluses to pay down $35,000 billion in 100 years even. It's inconceivable. Even in 200 years. Inconceivable. Remember, that's not just stop spending. That's in order to produce the kind of surpluses to offset the kind of deficits that we've had for 3 generations now. It's inconceivable. Money isn't money anymore, and we're going to find that out pretty quick. Already, this inflation thing, it's amazing. I just glance at something. Real Swamp, which says, not really trolling. I know Bill can't talk to me, so I poke. I'm happy to talk to you. Just caught that, and I never like to think that I don't like ignoring anybody. I try to get to all the questions I can. It usually means I get to 3. But yeah. All right. I'll try and catch that in the beginning here. All right. Roadrunner. Yesterday, Elon Musk tweeted to POTUS, the banks are melting in response to President Biden claiming ongoing successes over inflation and climate change. Climate change is going to be the politics of climate change will be the end of us, not what the Earth does. The question is, with Tesla and SpaceX benefiting with government subsidies and launch contracts, how much gravitas can one man have to continue to poke this administration? They've already screwed him on FAA requirements to delay Starship test launches. Is it a fine line for him to walk, or do you think he's gone full Rambo on Biden? He is in a tough situation. Real Swamp, which says we have a plan to pay off the debt. I cannot imagine a plan that would get this done because people are too selfish. They will not pay more taxes. They will not pay more. It's just not going to happen. It's just not. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know that people will not be making those kind of belt-tightening sacrifices to put out $35 trillion of surpluses. How much money do you need to run the country? This much. Yep. All right. Well, we're going to have to double that because we got this debt to pay off. I know what it is, Bill. I don't know what it is. I just don't. Look. I would love it if this were true. It's just. I don't know where I gave up on it. I want to say somewhere around, I think $20 trillion. I think when I hit $20 trillion, I just said, okay, all right. I see what's going on now. All of the people are, well, we charge other countries for copyright. It's a spending problem, yes, of course. We can't. There's not enough money in the world to pay that off. By the way, that's just the number on the books. It doesn't include unfunded liabilities like all the rest of this stuff. $108 billion to Ukraine. $108 billion is, well, what's that? That's it's obviously 10% of $1 trillion, and we're running $2 or $3 trillion deficits every year. We've been doing that for 20 years. So. It's not even things like Ukraine or Iran war or any of that stuff. It's the Social Security and the Medicare and all of these so-called non-discretionary funding. That's where the real money is. So anyway, Eli Noor. Hello, Bill. Hello, Eli Noor. Is there anything that Gen Z can do to redeem itself? You don't have to redeem yourselves. You're not the ones who put yourselves in this situation. Gen Z is in the trouble it's in because Gen Z was educated by Gen X and tail of the boomers and the head of the millennials. Right? Nobody in Gen Z asked to be raised to make them into the helpless generation that they are today. So you don't have anything to do to redeem yourself. However, I do think there are things that could be done. So let's see what the rest of the question goes. Being a reluctant member of this generation, like I had a choice, I will admit that it sometimes gets old to hear conservatives criticize my generation constantly. The problem is our generation continues to give them every reason to do so. Do you see us growing out of some of these delinquent traits as we get older, or is my generation just going to continue to contribute to the moral collapse of this country? Well, first of all, Eli, the fact that somebody like you would ask that question doesn't mean that you're just one person in Gen Z. I don't know what the percentage is, but there's a significant a significant. I'm sorry, I just have to answer this because so Real Swamp, which says the answer is copyright enforcement. Every country will owe us $1 trillion or so over years to pay off the debt. That sounds fine and everything, but now that burden shifts from American taxpayers to other people. You're saying other countries will tax their people enough so that they send $1 trillion to the U.S. on a regular basis. I remember when this whole thing came out. I'll get right back to you in a second on that question. When they were talking about, American imperialism and when this whole thing started, 2010, somewhere around there. And they were saying, America just goes out and, we're colonializers and we're imperialists, so we go out and we steal the wealth from the world. That's what empires usually do. We go out and we steal the wealth from the world. It's been a while since I did this math, 2010 or something, but I remember at the time I said, okay, let's look at a country that's not a microscopic country like, Vatican City. Let's just look at Mogadishu. I mean, no, it was, I guess it was Djibouti. Yeah, it was Djibouti. So I took a look at the GNP of Djibouti, and I want to say it's $1 billion something like that. Anyway, I did the math on how much money the U.S. government spends per year, wrote that math out to a daily basis. At the time, it turned out to us spending about $10 billion a day. And Djibouti's GNP was maybe $1 or $2 billion, which means that if we sent the Marines to Djibouti and took everything, and I mean everything, all of their crops, all of their ore, all of their pottery, everything, every single thing that's made in Djibouti, if we just went in with the army and took everything out of Djibouti at gunpoint, it would run the U.S. government for 7 hours. Right? 7 hours. So you could take all of the money that's made by the bottom 200 economies in the world, and it wouldn't run this government for a month. God 4455 says the gold standard is not enough to cover all the debit. How about a tri-metal standard, gold, silver, and copper, or perhaps another commodity? All of this stuff is closing the door, the barn doors after the horse has gotten out. A flat tax would fix so much. Yes, all of these solutions are great. All these solutions are great, logical, and would work. But they don't. But that's not the problem. The problem is the moral standing of the people involved. They won't do it. Right? They won't, and so they're going to have to be punished like any other 4-year-old having a tantrum. That's where we are now. I wish it weren't true, but it's not. We're not being governed by adults, and a significant portion of the population, about the majority of them, are not adults either. So when you've got kids who keep stealing cookies and continue to keep stealing cookies, then you can threaten them all you want to, but it's not going to change till they run out of cookies. And you don't have to run out of cookies, but that's what's going to happen, right? I mean, that's what's going to change them, and nothing else. There's nothing else. It's an awful, awful, awful reality about the human condition that we simply cannot learn from what's come before us. And so we just have to go in this giant wheel. Giant wheel. People will stop being so selfish and so unrealistic when they're forced to be. If there's a food crisis and all of a sudden everybody has to be out there in a backyard with a hoe, and by this I mean a garden implement, not a companion to Democratic politician or movie star or anything, then all of a sudden, when it's about have you tilled your 11 or 12-hour work quota for today, did you bring in enough food for us to be able to continue to feed you? Then things like your gender identity is going to go away real quick, right? Real quick. And so I did a video called "Eat the Rich." I took a look at this in 2012 or 13 or something, and said, let's take all the money from everybody. Take all the money from rich people. Take all the money from Exxon, Exxon and Walmart and a couple of other mega corporations drive the U.S. economy for 2 days. If we took everything, all of it, not just taxed them hard, took all their assets. And after a year, you still wouldn't have made enough to pay for it. But after that year was over, there'd be nothing left to raid and there'd be nothing left to produce. So it's just the numbers. $20 trillion is a stack of $100 bills. If you took the footprint of the World Trade Center, one of the World Trade Center towers, and you laid $100 bills down on that footprint on the ground floor, just covered it with $100 bills, and then you laid those $100 bills to get to the height of the top of the World Trade Center, you would need 37 of those to make $20 trillion. And Real Swampwitch is saying over time, Bill, it's with a great deal of respect, honestly, I'm not trying to be, a dick about this. I'm not. But these numbers are not imaginable. 37 stacks of $100 bills the size of World Trade Tower number 1. There you go. Patrick says, Bill tried to find something to be optimistic about. Doom Whittle is burning me out. Hey, I'm ultimately optimistic about this stuff only because that which cannot last will not last. Right? We're not the ones I'm worried about. I think we're going to be more or less fine. So I'm just trying to. We've been all trying to protect these people from themselves. Is where I started with this whole adventure tonight. And they won't let us. So they're going to have to experience this for themselves. So there are an entire generation of Gen Zers out there. Back to your question there, buddy. There's an entire generation of Gen Z women who've been taught that that the patriarchy has set up society so that they can't sleep around as much as men, and that it's an artificial creation designed to keep women down. So they've been told by feminists that they can have as much sex as they want to, and so they are. That's what they're doing. And now they're 23, 24, 26, and they've slept with 100 people. Not exaggerating. It's serious, really, 60, 70, 80 different people. Okay, now I want to settle down. Well, men aren't interested in me. Why? Well, because you slept with 60 guys. So, not necessarily against a pre-owned car, but, there comes a limit. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not going to buy a taxi. And they don't understand why. Well, it's too late for them. It's over. They've already done that. The number of women out there who are either cam girls who are OnlyFans, or the number of women out there who essentially have performed sex acts on the internet is in the tens of thousands, if not more. And the time will come when either people will not marry them because of that, or they'll have children who ask about it, and then they'll regret it. And just the tattoos, right? Look, I mean, tattoos. Look, some of the toughest guys I've seen have like sleeves, right? So I'm not here to say anything about tattoos. Only to say that it is now fashionable for young girls to have like enormous chest tattoos of eagles and all this other stuff, and they think it's going to make them unique. It's going to get them the attention they want. It cannot be undone. That tattoo is never going to look better than it does, a month after you've had it. Never. It's just going to get uglier and uglier and uglier. It's going to spread. It's going to sag. Period. It's just not going to change. Gob455 says, unfortunately, Super Chat, I'm forced to agree with you. That's why I have a deep pantry and invest in copper-jacketed brass. This is going to be painful. Yeah. It is. Scrappy says, my tats are my scars. Yeah. Now, the only hope for us, Gob, is that California will continue to be governed by Democrats. And so the least destructive way out of this would be for California to fail on a level that is so epic that it causes people to realize, okay, this is where we're all going. That's all I can. Look, if it weren't for Florida's just like, it's almost like, I think it's more than past neck and neck with Texas. Florida's like all of a sudden kind of almost starting to lap Texas, but just the existence of the state of Texas and their identity as a state, as a Republic of Texas, has always been my final comfort, right? It's like for conservatives, like, well, if things really go south, they always go to Texas. Now, unfortunately, that's what liberals probably think too. It's getting bad. New York is getting bad. I talked earlier about San Francisco. LA is getting bad. Is it ever going to be so bad that they change their minds instead of change their addresses? I don't know. But the good news is that there are no less than 100 million of us that get the idea, right? There's no less than that, probably more, but no less than 100 million Americans who are hardworking, honest, heavily armed, not going to be taken away, understand the work-reward equation, understand the risk-reward equation. It's 100 million of us. That's Germany and France. And so that is an enormous... That 100 million is what's keeping this whole thing going. And frankly, we're all getting tired of carrying the other 200 million around, or whatever the numbers actually are. So, okay, that's their system will fail. It's failing everywhere. And that's inevitable, and frankly, given the history of how these kind of things go, the sooner the better. It's never going to be good. It's going to be awful, but it gets more awful the longer it's delayed. Cody Fett for $10 says, I still think you should move to Texas now and get a low-tax studio that you, Zoe, and Scott can commute to. Zoe lives way out in the middle of nowhere. That's fine. Look, there's obviously something that will. There is a point at which I will move. I just haven't gotten there yet. I blame it on 25 years in South Florida. It's not my fault. I couldn't help it. 25 years in South Florida, and then you come to a place that's air conditioned outside with 60% humidity and 73 degrees and no mosquitoes and no smell of rotting mangoes everywhere, and you don't have to turn over the pillow at night so you can get some sleep. It takes a lot to pry a guy out of that. But I do have a line, and we'll see. All right, I'll maybe do one more because I need to get going home in 2 hours here so far, so we'll see. All right, I'm just taking them as they come here, gang. And this is from John Roth. Hi, Bill. Hey, John. Do you think we can actually win in 2024 at this point? As bad as things are, as unhappy as most voters are with the shape of the country under this administration and all the mounting Biden family scandals, I still think at least half of the country would still vote for Biden or any other Democrat just because he has a D next to his name. There's certainly a lot of evidence to point to that. The 2022 midterms was quite a shock for me. A really disappointing realization of just how dense people are. How, not even dense, just how conditioned they are. And with our budget broken and corrupt election system, we still have in many states, I have my doubts that we will ever really win a national election again, much less 2024. And I hear many conservative friends of mine saying they will never vote again because of how corrupt our elections are. This attitude is why our turnout was poor last November. They stayed home and did not vote. Yes, we are very, very good at helping this catastrophe come to pass. Also, do you think that we can really win with Trump as our nominee, or is he political kryptonite at this point? He won legitimately twice, but can he do it again? I believe that, by the way. Can he do it again and actually overcome the cheating? Are Republicans nationally doomed and split down the middle between the American First populists and the warmongering Democrat like Bush, McCain, Cheney era rhinos? Our establishment actively fights against us with big money to sabotage our chances of winning, etc. The last midterm. How do we overcome this? Seems like the odds are stacked against us on every front. By the way, will Daily Wire release a physical copy, Blu-ray, or DVD of both the What We Saw series and also the upcoming Empire of Terror? I'd like to own a physical copy. The second question I can answer much more easily. I think that's unlikely. I'm trying to get a book deal done with them, but I don't see how that's likely. There's a significant cost involved with producing those things, and they don't have to. They don't have to. Excuse me. They don't have to incur that cost. I don't know if TiVo is still a thing, but that would be my recommendation. They're taking a lot of precautions to protect their intellectual property like everybody else. So I'm doing my best, but I don't think have been or will be very effective with this. Their business model has turned that into a $300 million company 2 years ago. So I'm assuming it's pushing $700 million now, somewhere in that neighborhood. So that's that's that. So as far as the rest of it, look, the only thing that came out of 2022 was Florida, where I spent 25 or 26 years of my life. Not just DeSantis. If it were just DeSantis, then that would be a much less impressive. It's the degree that Florida has gone not only red, but now it's the reddest state in the union. That's because, hey, Steve, lying Ted Cruz, I'm not putting up with that here, okay? I know Ted Cruz. You consider Ted Cruz to be not a close friend, but a friend. I've never seen Ted Cruz lie. Ted Cruz cares about this country. Ted Cruz is a good man, and you're not going to get to say that here and stay. So either provide some evidence or pack it up, man. Anyway, so national election, I don't know. I know that Joe Biden is that the Democrats have to look further and further away to not see what he is, and the fact that they will not let Kamala Harris do anything. I see. He was referring to, you were referring to what Trump called him. My apologies. There are, I look at like Congress now, and I see guys like Josh Hawley and Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, 4 or 5 others who are really, really doing the job. They understand how it works, and they get these Biden appointees there and say, did you or did you not do this? Well, according to the standards of, did you do this or did you not do it? It's been our policy to find, did you do this or did you not do it? Well, as I explained earlier, it's been our policy, and it's like contempt of Congress, go to jail, right? They're lying under oath and nothing happens. Nothing happens. So anyway, this is the thing, and I'm going to just wrap it up with this because I'm getting a little done, I'm afraid. This was my conclusion right after the 2022 midterms. They have a brand and we don't. They vote for Fetterman, knowing that Fetterman is incapable of doing the job, but they vote for Fetterman because he's got a D next to his name. They're not voting for the candidate, they're voting for the brand. They're voting for the politics, so they know that whoever's going to replace Fetterman, whoever's going to actually make the decisions while Fetterman is out there on stage, and same for Feinstein, same for Biden, same for Harris, and all of them. They're buying the brand. So it doesn't matter what the individual candidate is like, they're buying the brand. And we have got the best product in the world politically, and we simply cannot describe it. How do you not sell freedom and fun? How do you not sell this? What's the matter with these people? I mean, us. What's the matter with us? Why can Republicans not do it? Why don't we have a brand? I'm just going to repeat this from earlier, but it needs to be said, and then I'm going to call it a day. When Biden stood out in front of the Independence Hall with the red and black background and the soldiers silhouetted in the background, looked like it was done by Murnau. It was, and he said that MAGA Republicans are a threat to our democracy. Democracy, democracy. He said it 13 times during that speech. Threat to our democracy, threat to our democracy. And what did we do? We said, we're not a threat to our democracy. You're the threat to our democracy. Really? Well, we think you're the threat to our democracy. What about democracy with this? What about democracy with that? So on and so on and so on. Well, that means that we lost, right? Because now we're talking about our democracy. We're not a democracy. The first thing we should have said is, I can't believe that the politicians, the Republican Party should have said, why is it that the President of the United States doesn't understand what his country is? We know he doesn't understand what day of the week it is, but you would think after 85 or 90 or 200 years, or however long the guy's been in politics, you would think that eventually he would have figured out, if for no other reason by accident, that he is not the president of a democracy, he's the president of a republic. So we're not talking about whether or not there's a risk to our democracy, because we don't have a democracy. We've never had a democracy. It's never been a democracy. And the reason it's never been a democracy is because democracies are dangerous, right? We are a democratic republic. We have a say in how we're governed, but we don't have the will of the majority doesn't get to do everything. In a democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting for what's for dinner. A republic is saying there's two wolves and a sheep trying to decide what's for dinner, but the sheep has constitutional protections that prevent him from being put on a plate just because he got outvoted. Anything else? You got any other problems with this? It's simple. It's real simple. That's the difference between a republic. They say, well, we have representatives. No, a republic has immutable laws that supersede democratic abilities to overturn them. And the Democrats say, well, that means they can't be changed. Precisely right. Yes, you have rights that protect your life and presumably your property, and they can't be changed. You can't outvote them. Well, we want to take more of your stuff. Well, you can't. Not in a republic. That's why we're not talking about a republic. But back to the point, right? Why did the Republican Party immediately agree that we're trying to fight for our democracy? Why didn't we simply say, no, we're fighting for our republic? Because if you're constantly talking about democracy and the Republicans are talking about a democracy, then guess which party sounds most like what you're trying to save? The Republican Party or the Democratic Party? You see? A democratic, we have the material and the ethics and the background and the track record and all of it to create a brand that is not only would not be exceeded in the world, but create the brand that has actually changed the world already. The traditional idea of the American dream, what America used to be, shining city on the hill, all of that stuff. It's there. It's sitting on the ground. We don't know how to pick it up. We just don't know how to do it. And it's very frustrating. Very frustrating. So maybe that's something for me to think about. Maybe make that into a series that never really occurred to me till just a second. Building the brand. Maybe that's not a bad idea. Let me think that over. Anyway, a relatively short show tonight. It's only 1 hour and 48 minutes, but, hey, it's better than nothing. And I'm still trying to get caught up to what I need to be doing, so there's that. So I think I'll wrap this up. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us here, as always. If you're watching this on YouTube on BillWhittle.com, would you hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell? I'm just curious to know if it works anymore. I was posting a video last night, the one I screwed up and put the right thumbnail up with the wrong video. And just before I got to that, I saw something from YouTube say, hey, this video is doing better than usual. I thought, oh, finally at last. What's it got? It's got 4,000 views now. Oh, Okay. So video is performing well at 5 or 6,000 views, and I have 188,000 subscribers. Something not adding up there, is it, really? And a lot of this is my problem. A lot of this is me not... for example, there is a YouTube thumbnail that is very effective, and it is the host of the show making a face. And if it's a sad video, put the sad face on. If it's a happy video, put the happy face on. And every single one of these thumbnails is the same. Happy host, upset host, jealous host, this. These are effective thumbnails. These are what drive traffic. These are the things that work, and I refuse to do them. And I'm going to continue to refuse to do them because I find them appalling and undignified and stupid and childish. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And take JT, for example, who I admire enormously, right? He's got it down, man. You look at his videos. Here's him reacting to it. It works. It works. I just don't have the I just find it undignified, and I'm not going to do it. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm responsible for here, and working my best on changing that. Anyway, this show is made possible by the members of Whittle.com, who continue to contribute to keep the lights on here. By the way, we're never going to raise the price on these memberships. The membership, entry-level membership, is $9.95 a month. We're never going to raise that. And with inflation going the way it's going, you'd probably be better putting your money into BillWhittle.com, because in a few weeks, $9.95 is going to be, a dime. So anyway, so if you want to go to BillWhittle.com, become a member, that'd be great. I like the idea of that, doing a series of brand things, by the way. Let me give that some thought. Okay. And hey, Dave Connell says, love from the UK, Bill. Thank you, David. Half my family's British. My mom's British, was British, to her dying day. She's a British subject with an American green card. So, Rule Britannia, baby. I always get snagged. Every time I try to get out, it pulls me back in. In many ways, the UK's further down the road to perdition than we are. And that's been hard to watch. But I saw something not too long ago where there's a room full of people and the orchestra was playing Land of Hope and Glory by, is that Elgar, I want to say? And you've all heard the tune. You may not know it. It's a version of it's used as a graduation song. Da 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 da, and it's just like a big theater of Brits, and they're playing Land of Hope and Glory, and they're all waving the Union Jack, and I thought, man, that makes me happy to see. Land of Hope and Glory is right. There's a line in Hope and Glory. There's a line in Land of Hope and Glory that I love so much. This is a sign. It's a line from a society that is confident and proud of itself. And I can't hit the notes, but the line is, God who has made you mighty, make thee mightier yet. God who has made you mighty, make you mightier yet. Damn it. Works for me, man. God who has made you mighty, make you mightier yet. Something along those lines, close to it. Land of Hope and Glory, baby. Yeah, it's very similar to Pomp and Circumstance. Wes Cagle says that Pomp and Circumstance, also by Edwin Elgar, we know it is pomp and circumstance. I believe they're two different versions of very, very similar. However, Land of Hope and Glory is what it was based on. In fact, I should like to hear the difference between the two. Anyway, it was great to see all those Brits waving the Union Jack, and that was good to see. So, and by the way, I think it's something we should all be doing too. It's not pomp and circumstance; it's Land of Hope and Glory. I believe there's a slight difference, but I know for a certain fact that everybody knows pomp and circumstance, but Land and Hope and Glory is what it was based on. And I just, on the door, on the way out, this is an international issue we're facing. This isn't America versus anybody else, isn't Republicans versus Democrats. This is the people of the world against the world elites who think they can get away with anything they want to at any time. And it's true here, and it's true in Great Britain, it's true all throughout Europe, it's true all around the world. It's the people versus the elites. And the elites think that they're smarter than we are, and they're not. And they never have been, ever, ever. They're dangerous, horrible people, and we need to fight them around the world. Just need to fight them, because I did the math on this. I think we outnumber them. I want to say it's about, what wasn't it right? 800,000 to 1, something like that. I forget. Anyway, we only do what they tell us to if we agree to. So it's all a psychological operation, folks. And social proof is the enemy, is a weapon rather. Yeah, you get that. Anyway, good to hear from you in UK and Australia and all places around the world and all the ships at sea. So we will see you on Monday for the Stratosphere Studio, and that's the end of that, I guess. Be careful out there, but not too careful, as you'll find out in my right angle for this week.